Jim, it's been a pretty decent year for the St. Louis economy. Unemployment rate last report is down to 2.9%, which is a record low. We gained some 24,000 jobs in 2022 as of November, and we had a string of wins from a flight to Germany, to a $25 million federal grant to develop advanced manufacturing, to a number of job announcements from manufacturers and other companies, totaling at least probably 1,000 new jobs that are coming, and $1 billion in investment.
We've had 3 manufacturing operations announced that they were starting up. When was the last time anything like that happened here? Manufacturing is coming back. The NGA is starting to sprout some spin-offs. And the entrepreneurial culture is very much alive here. We have prosperous businesses. On the other hand, we've had inflation this year.
Well, everybody has.
The real estate market has kind of stopped, because of high mortgage rates, and there's a possibility that there might be a recession next year.
That is the worry, and the question is how does St. Louis fare in a recession? We usually do lose jobs. Usually not as much as the nation as a whole, relatively speaking. Just because we've got a diversity of industries, we're not heavily dependent on manufacturing or any one sector that might get hit hard, like tourism did in the COVID recession.
And where housing prices have risen here, but they haven't gone through the roof like they have in other places. So we're not going to have a housing crash.
I don't think so, no.
And what you said, a diverse economy. We have an astoundingly diverse economy. I'm constantly surprised by finding little factories that are making plastics, pieces for locomotives. People are niche software making around here. It's just, there are no 2 or 3 or 4 industries that could bring this city down.
No, that's true. So I guess the question is, after a pretty good year, what lies ahead in 2023, regardless of whether there's a recession? I think St. Louis faces a number of challenges, but also some unique opportunities. On the challenges side, I'd say crime, public safety definitely needs to be addressed. Downtown, like many downtowns, is suffering in the wake of pandemic that caused a lot of people to work from home. Companies downsize their office space needs. It's a transition for a lot of downtowns, and we'll have to come to grips with that.
Well, if you look back over the last 30 years, downtown transformed from a commercial center, pretty much run down to more of a residential center, and for a while it was quite lively. In fact, during the pandemic, it got a little too lively down there sometimes. But our downtown's basically obsolete in an area of working from home. I don't know. We have to get a transition for downtown to perhaps a more lively, more entertainment-oriented, more residential-oriented core, because I don't think the office workers will come back to the same degree that they used to.
Not in the numbers that downtown used to have. On that front, there are some encouraging signs. I mean, there is a developer at least looking at the White Elephant Southwestern Bell AT&T building that's been vacant for over a decade. There's signs of movement on the Jefferson Arms, which is another big, huge vacant building downtown, turned into a hotel and apartments. I think that residential transition is going to take a long time to accomplish, but there are signs that it's happening.
It could be, sure, you have a 44-story AT&T building down there, which is sitting vacant and was on the cheap. And you could see if you can attract, partly a hotel. There's still room for hotels, plus a lot of luxury condos that you could sell fairly cheap.
Right.
You could see creating that in the Jefferson Arms, creating little a viable community there, which would spring off with retail and grocery stores.
And finishing off the challenges side of the ledger, we've talked before about Emerson, which is looking for a new headquarters. I think their decision will be a real bellwether, maybe, of how St. Louis is faring.
Oh, I disagree. Losing Emerson would be a blow to our municipal ego, but it doesn't mean all that many jobs.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about this as a viable place for to locate a headquarters. I mean, Emerson itself is changing, and that's why it's selling off. Right. Parts of itself, and then the parts of itself it's keeping are basically not in St. Louis.
It's the classic line. It's not about you, St. Louis. It's about us, Emerson. Right? Yeah. Okay. But on the opportunities side of the ledger, we do have a lot of Rams settlement money to either squander or invest wisely. We'll talk about that in a separate episode. We have still some federal stimulus money that's trickling through, so our government finances are in fairly good shape. Although the county deficit is concerning. If there's a recession, those numbers will get worse. Obviously,
that's true. And again, you have the problem of crime, which I think some of it's real. I mean, crime has picked up. But perception is much worse than the reality. It's not as bad as people portray it, but still.
No, that's true, and it's not a problem unique to St. Louis. I mean, violent crime in the wake of the pandemic rose in a lot of big cities across the country.
That's true.
So, but it is something that St. Louis and the new police chief are going to have to come to grips with. And the head of Greater St. Louis Inc. told me that public safety has kind of risen on the civic leaders to-do list. So there are challenges, there are opportunities. The question is how do we build on what was a pretty good year and have more.
And with our entrepreneurial culture that we've developed over the last few years, with things like the Plant Science Center, with things like Boeing here, a very healthy healthcare industry, a very large healthcare industry.
Right.
I think that the future looks pretty good for St. Louis.